to talk about content in the customer experience. I am joined by Julie Ogilvie directly to my left, and Laura Bellamy, who you're all familiar with as well. Quickly, I'm going to do backgrounds. Laura, you're going to have to give me your new title again, since it's incorrect on this sheet. So could you share with us one more time?
Director of Content Strategy and Operations.
Very good. At
VMware.
Very good. There we go. All right. Sounds good. So Julie Ogilvie, who we haven't met yet. Julie heads brand and communication strategy services for SiriusDecisions, which is a division of Forrester Research. Prior to SiriusDecisions, she was VP of Marketing at Skillsoft, a global e-learning provider. I'm assuming there's a lot of us in the room who use Skillsoft, right? Everybody raise a hand. No? Nobody? No? Wow, that is very surprising. I bet if you ask the people in your organization, you do, and you just don't know. Yes. It seems they need some marketing, Julie. Prior to Skillsoft, she did marketing for Bow Street, which is pioneering web services. Before Bow Street, held a variety of roles at iOmega. Anyone remember the zip drive? That's iOmega's brainchild. She's based in Newmarket, New Hampshire. Beautiful country just north of here. Enjoys birding, quilting, hiking, and playing the flute. Do you play the flute while hiking?
No.
Oh,
I bird
points.
while hike. But if there's any
okay.
bird questions, I'm happy to field those.
Very good, very good. So, as I said, we are going to talk about customer experience. We're going to take sort of two different angles at customer experience today, and the intersection of content and how it can fuel and drive customer experience for enterprise organizations. First, we're going to talk about content for your employees, which Julie's going to talk us through that. We're also going to talk about content for your customers, which we're going to bring both folks in to talk through it. We're also talking about the cross-functional nature of content production and how it drives a value additive customer experience. So, before we get started, let's talk about, there we go. What is customer experience? Anybody want to volunteer a definition off the cuff of what customer experience is? I said there would be crowd participation. There will be crowd participation. First volunteer. Satisfaction with the product and support, mostly support. Okay, I like that. I like that. It's a good place to start. You get a prize. One of my favorite books, The Giving Tree. Oh, see, I got an wait till we get deeper into the presentation. It's going to be so much better. Anyone else? Another volunteer. I brought prizes. Okay? Whatever the customer says it is. I like that. That was good. That was good. 20 years of customer experience. Never heard that one. I've heard customer is always right, but I guess that leads into that one. Third and last volunteer for my last copy of The Giving Tree. Oh, don't be shy, friends. Somebody, I don't want to take this book home with me. There we go. And Sandy from BMC. We don't have a microphone for you, but here you go.
How the customer feels after interacting with your products and your content and your people.
How the customer feels after interacting with your product, your content, and your people. Somebody's been reading Wikipedia. I see. So let's talk through definitions for a moment. There's the academic definition. Okay, term used to describe the relationship a customer has with a business. It's the sum total of all interactions that a customer has with a business throughout the relationship. This is the customer experience definition, I believe, through TSIA, which is a large services organization. It is basically a collection of VPs of services and delivery and things like that. It is a very large association. Simple. How customers perceive their interactions with your company, right? Simple, to the point, direct. Third definition, let's blend the two together. Customers' perception and related feelings caused by one-off and cumulative impact of interactions with the supplier's employees, systems, channels, or products. Everybody like 3? Let's go with 3 for today's exercise, hey? So, let's take a little walk through customer experience and what it means to your customer. So we're saying the sum total of all of your experiences, right? So we have this sort of life cycle of the giving tree and all of the experiences that the boy has with the giving tree throughout the story. Anyone unfamiliar with the story? Let's start there. I know that I'm sort of calling on, I'll get you a book too. It's fine, I'll get you one. So this is, this is a lifetime of experiences that this boy goes through during the giving tree. It is positive experience, it is negative experience, but at the end, they both end up satisfied and happy, according to Shel Silverstein. What was that? It makes me cry. Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of people cry, and I think it's one of those things that they've interviewed Shel Silverstein, and he said, it's not meant to be a sad book. I end it with, the tree was happy. The tree was happy to give everything to the child, and the child was happy because the tree provided. Again, take away what you will from it. A lot of people cry, including myself. I've cried reading the book. My wife has cried reading the book. So it happens. Again, sum total, the life cycle of experiences that you have. What we're going to talk about here is, we're going to talk about brand. Julie's going to take us through that. We're also going to talk about how to define brand. How is your brand defined? How is it received by the market? So there's a tree. But what kind of tree was it? It's an apple tree? It's a pine tree? Is it a willow? What kind of tree was it? It's an apple tree, you say. Well, yes, indeed. But if you define yourself as a tree and you just say, hey, I'm a tree, you're open to interpretation. I do like that I'm getting crowd participation. This is the most back and forth we've had all day. I like it. But if you have this one-to-one interaction, you can tell the market what you are. You can say, hey, market, I'm a giving tree. Sean, I'm a giving tree. Do you understand? Yes? Received, right? I'm a giving tree. Okay. This is really simple. That one-to-one interaction is simple. That's why personal brand, you see sort of like these people who have like their own personal brand. They have like, the stamp that they have that goes with them, or, their signature look or things like that, right? Personal brand's easy. It's a one-to-one interaction a lot of times. When you are a large organization, it gets a little more difficult, right? Your audience gets a little bit larger. Their personal interpretations of your messages are just a little bit different. They all have different needs. They all have different lenses that they view it through. And you can be saying, I'm a giving tree. The guy in the back may not hear it, right? The one in the middle may speak French. I don't know what giving is. Could be anything, okay? And then it gets even more complex, okay? At scale, when you have multiple markets, multiple points of communication, multiple touch points, we said the sum of interactions with your brand, services, company, content, omni-channel, all of these things. How do you ensure consistency across all of these channels? Right? I think almost to a T, everybody up here has talked about complexity today. Okay? This is one of the most complex problems that we have as large enterprise organizations, is reading the market and knowing how the market perceives us. And if we put effort in up front on setting that perception correctly and testing and ensuring that the market is hearing what we're saying, we can cut down a little bit of that complexity. So, sorry, I'm skipping one more here. The importance of content in the in the employee experience here. All of us have, or the majority of us here in the room have services organizations, right? We may have call centers, we may have chat bots, we may have Zendesk, we may have tickets that come in, right? Could have internal tickets even that come in, right? Some of us may sit in a shared services organization where we get internal tickets where we have different stakeholders where, let's say, the marketing department is our customer. To set this up correctly, we talk about, again, I'm a giving tree. But your giving tree is represented by these trees. Let's say these trees actually represent the diverse set of employees that you have in your organization. You have diverse skill sets, you have diverse backgrounds, you have diverse locations. You could have non-native English speakers that are working in an English-speaking market, right? You could have folks that are on a 12-hour time difference that are servicing another geo. Right? All of these employees need to communicate the giving tree message. So how do you do that? Right? How can we get a diverse set of employees, the diverse set of filters, diverse set of messages, diverse, just background in general, to have that clear, consistent message, right? We're talking marketing, finance, analytics folks. Let's just say you have a couple of PhDs on staff, some scientists, right? Does everybody remember Office Space, right? Bob, what do you do? I talk to the engineers, right? Like, okay, great, like, because the engineers aren't allowed to talk to people, right? We all know, right? We all work in engineering, right? Engineers aren't allowed to talk to people, right? So, you know, it's a complex problem. It's difficult to solve. Some would say start here. Start with your audience. Start with the people that you're communicating to. And if you can, maybe you're lucky enough that these people actually want to come work for you or want to come into your organization. And you want to hone these advocates. You want to bring them in, and you want to start to model them as perhaps the employees that you're looking for. So as we go through here, we start there and we talk about these programs that are going to bring us through. And really what we want to do here is, Julie, I want to talk about content in the employee experience and how to ensure that your brand is magnified, echoed, multiplied, whatever you want to say, by all of your employees, right? So, let's talk about programs and enablement and onboarding and the importance of reinforcement and things like.
First, I have to just congratulate you. That was the most poetic telling of the whole content marketing employee
It was
brand.
plagiarism. No, just kidding. I took from Shel Silverstein. I gave out the book, Julie.
Well borrowed then. So I'm glad you started with brand, because that's really where it starts, and that's often where it goes wrong, is in the early definition, because really the job of the brand is to provide alignment between the company and its customers and the company and its employees. And if you have a brand that's well-defined and meaningful for your customers, that tells your employees know now what it is that they need to deliver. Your customers all have a clear expectation of what their customer experience is going to be. And unfortunately, and I work with a lot of companies, SiriusDecisions works primarily or actually exclusively with B2B companies. So there's a lot of complexity. We work with a lot of technology companies, and I see how brand can go wrong in a number of different ways, starting with a lot of companies that just really don't understand why brand is important. They'll say, it's a logo, it's a color palette, it's not, they don't see it as like the DNA of their company, as sounds like one of the topics you've been discussing here today. There's other companies that, their message is like this, buzzword sausage, right? It's just like, how many buzzwords can you cram into one sentence? Terrible, not inspiring anybody. And then on the other extreme, there's brands that are so generic and so high level, they don't really mean anything. It could be the brand of any company anywhere on the face of the earth. We transform people's lives for the better, or our purpose is to do good in the world, whatever it is. So the first thing is that you have to capture your brand in a crisp way so that people can understand it. Your customers and your employees can be aligned around it. I see we've been talking about style guides, and I get such a kick out of it. And my former years as a practitioner, I was guilty of all these things. But I see a lot of style guides, again, that are paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs and pages and pages and pages. That's not really helpful to people who need to go out and say, I need to behave in a certain way and sound like the company, behave like the brand. So it needs to be simple in the way that you communicate it from the top. So ideally, you should be looking to encompass your brand in a single page document. And then when you say, okay, let's say you've achieved nirvana, you've got that. Next, you need to bring it out to your employees. And Andre from Dell was saying a lot of things that really resonated with me. And it's not something that I see in practice very much around all the companies that we talk to, which is that you really need to understand who now all of these different employees are, because what brand means to them, if you're a frontline tech support person, or you're an executive, or you're a salesperson, or you're in accounts payable, or you work in a manufacturing plant, it is different for all of those people. So you do need to go beyond just creating that style guide. You need to begin to try to bring it out to them. And there needs to be some kind of an enablement program that's based on the idea that you understand who your internal segments and personas are. So we externally, of course, we all understand the concept of segmentation and personas and how important that is. But often internally, we sort of take for granted that all of our employees are like one big monolithic blob, right? We don't treat them with the same respect we treat our external audiences. So that's one of the first things you need to start doing. And then, of course, you immediately run into the problem of how do we make this more scalable? And that's why I'm glad we're here at Acrolinx, because I think you're working on that problem of scalability. You know, understanding who all of these different voices are. No one single group is ever going to control all of the messaging and content. So how do you help people do the right thing? They want to do the right thing. How do you help them do it?
That's great. A ton of great points there. I want to actually go to my friends in the audience for a second here. My IBM contingent. I know there were 3 or 4 of us in the Mike is still here. You're still here. Jason's still here. Okay. My friends from IBM. Does anyone still have their key values card in their pocket? I don't think I ever got one. You never got a key values card. Jason. So, it may sound hokey. It may actually, you may say, oh my God, I can't believe, like, corporate machine, what are you doing? IBM actually gave me a card the day my company was acquired. And they said, these are the key values of IBM. It had a key on the front of it, right? Like I said, you may say hokey. Actually had a golden key, like a key to the city. And it listed the 7 core values of IBM. Do I remember them? No. Did I carry it for 3 years? Yes. Did I cite it when it made my argument stronger? Yes. Like, are we doing this? Why? It doesn't align to this value. Why would we be doing that? I'll tell another side anecdote. I have a friend who worked for OSI Restaurant Group. I'm sure we have all eaten in an Outback or a Carrabba's or a Leroy Selman's or a Burton's or any one of those. He has worked for this company for 25 years. Posted the other day on his Twitter feed as he opened his 5th new restaurant, the OSI Steakhouse key value card that he got when he started there 25 years ago. He said, sometimes it's the simplest things, it's the fundamentals that we need to go back to that will drive your success. So this is, to hit back on your point, is it starts at the beginning. It starts with the onboarding process. It starts with your training that you get in your first 14 days as an employee, whatever it is, right? You get that fire hose 10 days that you come to. What are some of the reinforcement programs that you've seen that, that have been carried out really well?
Right. So you're absolutely right. Like if it's not continually being brought to life through, obviously there's the internal communications, the town halls, there's your direct manager to employee communications. That's one of the things that I would emphasize is if you want to be successful in this, you need to have the organization on your side. You need to really help your managers understand how they can be reinforcing, what the right type of brand communication is. One that I thought was interesting, so one of the clients we've worked with is called Eaton. It's a gigantic manufacturing company. They have like 90,000 employees. It's a $20 billion company. And one of the things that I found very interesting is, we all define brand attributes. That's a common part of your style guide. For Eaton, the brand attributes are actually their leadership attributes. So there's no daylight between what leaders are supposed to do and how they're supposed to behave and what the brand means. So a lot of times companies will have those as 2 different things, and it's really the same for Eaton. And they've done a lot of other things where they've tried to bring the brand to life for employees in different roles through specific types of training, for instance.
Very good. What about engagement programs? Have you seen any that are relatively effective besides, here's a badge, here's a, desk placard, here's, a T-shirt?
Yeah. I think, engagement is like this magic fairy dust of business performance. When companies have high engagement, studies show that they perform better on, a really wide range of business metrics. They grow faster, they tend to have higher customer satisfaction, higher quality, and even better return to shareholders. So getting getting employees engaged with your company, which means that they are adopting your identity essentially. They stop saying what's in it for me and they start thinking about what's in it for the team and why is this good for the company. So I've seen, again, I go back to how well have you defined what it is that you do and is it inspiring to the employees. Another company we worked with that I thought had a really great and inspiring story called Arrow Electronics. So they're another big, gigantic company you probably haven't heard of, but something like 30,000 employees and 20 billion in sales. And they, what they did was their brand promise. They wanted to bring their very technical product to life, and they ended up building a self-driving car for a person who had been paralyzed in a car racing accident. And it was something that brought, such pride to the employees. This is just one of the things they've done. They've done a lot of things that are really native to who they are as a company and really, again, inspiring to the people who are employees. So I would say it takes a lot of different forms. I would say, just doing, handing out T-shirts or hats, those are all nice things, but, how do you really, how do you really bring it to life? I'll give you one more example. I just thought of another customer's Red Hat, which is now part of IBM. And they were going through maybe a year ago, they were going through a rebranding process. And one of the problems that they had was that some of the employees had the logo tattooed on their person. So they had a committee called the Tattoo Committee that they had to run everything through, any kind of decision about changing the brand. So that's a high quality problem, right? You have people who have actually tattooed the brand on whatever body part.
Yes,
So,
I have many, but I don't see the Acrolinx logo in my future, but we shall see, So I'm the customer guy. I want to get back to customers a little bit. I'll share one more engagement anecdote just because it's fun. It starts way earlier than you think. It is not your indoctrination into large corporate organizations. I have 2 children that go to the same elementary school. Their values for the school are actually posters on the walls of the main hallways that intersect the school. And our children come home with ink stamps on their hand, and they're called yays. So if you embody a value of the school, you get a stamp on your hand. You get 5 stamps, you get a rubber bracelet, right? And the kids pine after the rubber bracelet. Like they're, I got to do something nice. I got to share. I have to be, I have to like pick the person up off the ground or whatever it is, right? Be a good sport, something like that. So it starts early, and there's proof and there's evidence that it works. It's it's about reward and that type of folks. So. You have a rubber stamp yay? I like it. So we've talked about your brand. You're the giving tree. We've talked about your customer. We've touched a little bit on your value. I'm going to pick on you a little bit, Laura, because you talked about the need for cross-functional collaboration in your presentation, unprompted by me. And this is sort of the key to get the buy-in, the key to do everything else. So let's talk about sort of assembling the right players and putting that right process in place, to have a world-class process.
Yeah, a few techniques I like to do to bring the right people to the table is 1, get an ally, right? Just one friend who will come to this daunting task with you. So then there's 2 of you, right? You build momentum. And it's usually someone who has the same problem you do, right? People are only willing to invest if they're also suffering. So you got to find someone else who is suffering this problem with you. Once you have them as an ally, I like to use the FOMO principle. FOMO stands for fear of missing out, right? So that builds momentum. So now there's me and an ally, and we're going to start a committee, we're going to start a meeting, we're going to have a focus group, we're going to do a project, whatever it is. But the 2 of us get a 3rd person. And then the 3rd person, we make sure that the rest of the teams know. And they look at us like, what are they doing? What are they deciding? What if they talk about something? Well, we're part of that too. And then IT hears about it, and IT goes, they better not buy anything without our approval. And then IT wants in, and then, the next year. So it builds momentum in itself just by getting that one ally and starting that conversation. So that's one technique I like to use to make sure you get the right people at the table. But the other technique I like to use is actually to talk about it in terms, I mentioned risk earlier today. but to phrase it from the customer experience of what the current state is. Everyone only cares about their own world, and to talk about a cross-divisional problem takes them out of their world, right? You have to make it applicable back down to them. And the best way to be customer-focused and applicable is to do a real-world example of what that pain looks like. So you have 1,000 examples, you have support escalations, you have a horrible customer experience and bad CSAT right now. That is not something you need to defend against, that's your opportunity to have the conversation. So whenever I get an escalation or an incident like that, I don't try to dismiss it. I try to say, I agree. This is what it looks like for the customer. I agree. This is the pain we're suffering from this. And I agree. This is in your business unit. Here's how we can come together and you can help me solve this. And that brings lots of people to the table because now they're accountable to solve this as well.
Got it. It almost sounds like you're solving sort of marketing's next generation for outside the organization, right? You're doing that personalized experience inside, right? You're speaking sort of metrics and things like that that make sense to the finance person or compliance or things like that. Marketing's trying to do that with targeting and the people that are coming in. Tell me, beyond you, how do you get the folks on your team to sort of act in that same manner and things like that? Like, is it prep? Is it enablement? Is it sort of any direction that you give them throughout their interactions? Because you can't constantly be selling up, right? So who else is out there and sort of singing the message for you?
Having everybody else be prepared and enabled to talk about this too means they need to speak business value. They need to understand core value proposition. They need to talk about ROI. And if you're looking at your individual contributors, your engineering team, your tech writers, your information architect, they might not have that business perspective, right? So that's one educational item, is make sure everybody talks about ROI. Everybody talks about business value. And at my team, we've actually summarized it in a way where we go, so what? So someone comes with us and they say, I have this problem. I don't disagree with you. It sounds like a problem. It's affecting 20 people. Ooh, sounds like the scope of the problem's pretty big. So what? Prove to me I should solve this problem, right? Are we bleeding money because of it? Are customers dissatisfied and they're trashing us on social media? Is this going to enable a huge market sales opportunity, right? So even just preparing my team with that language brings the business perspective for the conversations when we're talking about cross-divisional content problems.
Got it.
Another thing we do is something we call above the fold. And I also have one of those cards that has our 7 values. It's on my badge too. I don't know all 7. 7's too many.
7's too many.
7's too many.
You're right.
And companies don't operate with all 7, right, as equal. Most companies operate with only 1, 2, 3, and those are the things that are above the fold, right? The other ones get forgotten. And so as a company choosing your brand, and as my team choosing what we focus on, we often say, what's above the fold here? And so that's language we have. And so at a company, you think of like Apple. Above the fold for them, design, right? They're going to smooth, sleek, ease of use customer experience. That's above the fold for them. Every decision they make, from the user experience and the UI to the content, should reflect that. Company like Zappos, it's customer experience and support, right? Delighting those customers. Every content or engineering decision they make should optimize for that too. And at VMware, part of our brand and what's above the fold, is innovation. That's one thing for us. And so when we talk about things, we talk about what is above the fold to our organization because they're the only things that resonate and the only things that we were truly prepared to take action on.
Love it. The 7 values is funny because I worked for a company called Connexa, and we had the 10Xa. So you couldn't do 7, you clearly couldn't do 10, and when we got to 9 and 10, you could see that we were stretching. We're like, oh yeah, this one too, let's bring that one in. Oh God, that is terrible. So you also gave me flashbacks from journalism when you were saying above the fold. I was like, oh God, the editor's room, like what's going on here? So there's, in non-denominational God, we trust everybody else bring data, right? Which you talked about, and you enable your team on that. What about access to data? How do you ensure that sort of everybody has the hymn book to sing from, right? Are you publishing? Are you doing dashboards? Are you pushing the information? Are people expected to self-serve on it? How does that work?
Data is political, first of all, right? Getting access to data could be like, why do you need that access?
Yep.
It could be compliance-based. You don't get access to that. That is private secured data, right? It could be territorial. No, that is my data. You get your own data, right? It could be charter. No, that's not your job to get or build the data. That's what my team is doing, right? So there's a lot of challenges in data access alone, let alone the quality of the data, just getting access to the data, right? So I also recommend you start small with what it is within your scope of control. If you own the content, no one's going to block you from understanding how that content is performing, right? That's your charter. You're accountable to the performance of that content. So ask for what's in your control. Eventually, as we talked about, you want to correlate it. You'll need other related data. Then you'll have to get data allies and work on getting more pieces of data that you potentially don't own, right? So that's one thing to start with is take with what is in your control to talk about. But I also say prepare your teams, right? With all others bring data. They may be prepared to have those insights. And when we're talking to content producers, I think one of the immediate things that comes is, what are you going to do with that data? Are you going to judge me? What do you mean content performance? Are you going to say that I'm not doing my job well enough? Right? So you need to have data conversations as foundational, right, to your organization that need to become part of your culture and DNA before you even get access to that data. And then the other point I would say, you have access to data. How are you going to use it? I have lots of fancy dashboards. I have lots of fancy automated reports. And one of my fancy dashboards, I love to look at, Uber Analytics. I look at the analytics. Who's looking at my dashboard? You know who the number one user of the dashboard is? It's me. By far. And then it's my team members, and then like a long slope down before it's anyone else. And I did this exercise a few quarters ago where I quantified. I showed how much money I spent on data reporting analytics capabilities. I said, I spent this much money enabling reporting. Why am I the primary user of this data? Is this not worth it to our company? You need to operationalize the data into part of your business process. Taking action on that data should have been a conversation that was had and agreed upon before you even tried to get access to the data. So that would be one of my big pieces of advice before anyone goes out there and says, if only I had access to the data, all my problems will be solved. That's just the start.
Very good.
Yeah, I would say in terms of data, what I see with brand, so corporate marketing, corporate communications, they don't lack for data points really. And if you have a social traditional media monitoring tool, you have a lot of different things you can measure. The problem is pulling it together so that you're telling a story that people care about, especially that executives care about. And that's one of the things I really liked about Andrew's presentation was using data in a way where you're really showing a very simplified picture of here we are today and here's where we want to go. You really need to figure out a way to bring your all of your different data points into some structure that boils up to something that people care about. So for a brand person, it's usually awareness, perception, and preference. You may have 25 different data points, but how do they relate to those goals that you need to achieve?
Okay. Absolutely. I will share one more sort of personal anecdote that comes up very often here. I think we're all sort of like on this journey together around bringing data, being analytic, driving things around, whether it's bottom line dollars, top line dollars, data points, speed of content, accuracy, quality score, whatever that is. Step one is the raw number, right? Like let's get to a place where everyone can sort of read the raw number, understand what that means from a direct impact perspective. Second thing is the next time you come to that meeting, it shouldn't be about the report. It actually shouldn't be about reading that report. It should be preset that everyone has read the report and everybody understands the report. It's can you bring insight after that report? Data's great, insight's way better, right? So you're so what? You're above the fold, about the impact of data or the impact of change. So great, let's set the stage, let's set the brand inside the organization that we're going to be data driven and we're going to validate based on data points that we have in front of us. But insight's more powerful than data every single time, right? I have said this so many times in my career that I'm pretty sure I've offended about 800 to 700 people. Have an opinion, right? Bring the data, bring the insight, and then have an opinion, right? You strive to work in an organization where your opinion matters, where your insight matters, where your experience matters. If you come to the table, bring the data point the first time, bring the insight the second time, bring your opinion the third time.